And one other study tip, and I guess it's personal and it just kind of depends on how you study. And actually before I get into what I'm getting ready to say, how you learn yourself is so important because there is so much information out there to try to help you figure out how to study. And they're like, oh, if you do this and you do that and you watch these videos and you download this app and you do all of these things, for myself, and I really learned this more in law school, I'm a person who studies better by myself. And not that I don't benefit from group study, but it's just really hard for me to learn like that, as opposed to some people, they benefit from a class environment. The first time I studied for the LSAT, I took Kaplan, which was a class. Myself and my other classmates got to participate and discuss, but when other people were discussing things, I found it, going over my head, as opposed to when I'm sitting down and I have to force myself to touch every single question. So I think that that's really important. But the other point I was going to make is that I think is so much there is so much value in putting a certain amount of time in there, because even if you feel like you're not progressing, like just spending 2 hours on a subject, let's just say per session that you study, even if your wheels aren't turning the way that you want them to turn, you will pick something up in that process. And sometimes it just takes time for something to click for you. But you won't know that unless you actually sit down and put in that time. And I know that in college, I don't want to say college is kind of easy, but depending on what kind of school you go to, but a lot of students are not used to having to study every single day for a certain amount of time, to reach an ultimate end goal. And I find that knowing how to study is a part of the disconnect in between the score that you may start off with when in a code diagnostic, like you mentioned, and the score that you ultimately end up with. And some students, the wise students, have the foresight to be able to really break down the subjects and be able to test themselves and spend time with the subject. And that can be kind of tricky. Like for myself, I didn't really, I was a crammer, do things last minute, and going from that to I have a regimented study schedule where I have to do X amount of time per day. I'm doing 1 to 2 practice tests per day, or even if it's not a test, just a section, 25 questions here, 35 questions there every other day. Really just setting up a schedule for yourself, I think, is one of the most important things you can do in conjunction with really understanding who you are and how you study.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.